There was no shouting, no dramatic blow-up, just cold, casual exile. My mom didn't even look up from her tea when she added, "She's right." And my dad, still glued to his phone, mumbled, "Yeah, maybe it's better this way." That was it. That was my family cutting me loose like last week's recycling. I stood there silent, half expecting a punchline. I mean, surely they weren't being serious, but the smug twist of my sister's smile told me this was real. Scripted, even. I could practically hear the rehearsals in her bedroom. She'd always been good at that. Charm offensive. Weaponized sweetness. Whispers to mom about how I didn't fit in. Fake concern that dripped with sabotage. I was the only one who ever saw through it, which I suppose made me enemy number one. So I laughed. Not because it was funny, God no, but because it was too absurd not to. "Welp," I said, yanking my jacket off the back of a chair. "Guess I'll save you the trouble." And I walked out. No one stopped me. My sister looked victorious. My mom sipped her tea. My dad kept scrolling. I shut the door behind me and just stood there on the porch. Let the cold bite into my face. Took the deepest breath of my life. It didn't hurt, not the way they probably wanted it to. See, I'd long since stopped chasing their approval. I wasn't like my sister, the golden child with her perfect GPA and Instagrammable wedding. I was the afterthought, the leftover, barely tolerated. They called it tough love. I called it emotional malnourishment. Still, I won't lie, it stung. Not the exile itself, the ease of it. The way they didn't even flinch. No hesitation, no wait, let's talk. Just bye. That night, I stayed at my best friend Leah's place. We shared a bottle of cheap rosé on her ratty futon, and I told her everything. Wait, they really said that, she asked, eyes wide. Verbatim. My mom didn't even blink. Leah whistled low. That's cold. Like Siberia cold. Honestly, you're better off. And I agreed, mostly. But something gnawed at me. Not just the rejection, it was the timing. The way my sister had been working up to this for months, all those sly digs. The way she'd say things like, "You just see the world differently," when I'd call her out on her manipulations. Or the way she'd tilt her head at mom and go, "Don't you think she's, I don't know, not really one of us?" She didn't just want the spotlight. She wanted the stage to herself. 2 days later, I found out what she'd really been clearing the space for. I came home to grab some clothes, and there they were, suitcases by the door, luggage tags already looped. A family vacation. I hadn't even known they were planning one. My sister was in full director mode, barking orders, laughing too loudly, fake posing for selfies. I watched from the stairs. She kept glancing over like she wanted a reaction. I gave her none. Finally, she turned and smiled sweetly. "So you just gonna sit here all alone? What'll you do without us?" I smiled back, calm, serene, the way I knew would piss her off the most. "I hope they take you to a psych ward," I said, voice like sugar. "Maybe they'll have a room for mom and dad too." Her face snapped red. The shriek was immediate. "She's unhinged." My parents came running like I'd thrown a chair. My mom clutched my sister like she was a trauma victim. My dad glared at me like I'd just insulted the Pope. "You're so cruel," my mom hissed. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I shrugged, because I'd rather be sane. When they left, I didn't even watch the car pull out of the driveway. Just turned up my music, made popcorn, and marathon trashy rom-coms. And for the first time in ever, the house felt quiet. No power games, no tension, no performative martyrdom from my mom, or tantrums disguised as honesty from my sister. Just me, the couch, and a scented candle that actually stayed lit. Of course, in my family, peace is just the commercial break. The storm's always coming. The first call came at 10:04 a.m. I was mid-pancake flip, humming along to some 2000s throwback when my phone buzzed on the counter. My sister. I stared at her name, let it ring out. She called again 5 minutes later, then again, and again. By the time I was halfway through my second pancake, she'd called 7 times. I was impressed. She usually only got this unhinged when someone threatened her Wi-Fi. I considered blocking her purely for sport, but curiosity won out. What kind of crisis turns Queen Manipulator into Miss Desperate Redial? On call 8, I picked up. What I said flatly. "Oh my God, finally," she shrieked. "I've been calling you for hours." "It's been 30 minutes, I said. I was making pancakes." "This isn't funny," she snapped. Her voice was tight, high-pitched, and just on the edge of panic. "We're in trouble. I need your help." I leaned against the counter. "Define trouble." She hesitated. That was my first clue something was seriously off. My sister never hesitated. She just bulldozed through truth with whatever fiction suited her. We got robbed. I blinked. You got robbed? Yes, she snapped. Some guy stole all our money. Mom and Dad are freaking out. We're stuck here with nothing. I didn't know who else to call. Why not call Mike? I asked. Silence. Oh, I said, letting a grin spread across my face. You didn't tell him, did you? Shut up. No, seriously? Did the guy take more than your money? Or was that part of the plan? This isn't a joke, she hissed. Oh, it kind of is, I said. Let me guess. You dragged them somewhere shady and now you're too embarrassed to admit you messed up. Another pause. Then, are you going to help us or not? I made a show of thinking, tempting. But I'm really busy. The couch isn't going to binge Netflix without me. Seriously. In the meantime, maybe ask one of those charming locals you love so much. I'm sure they'd be delighted to help. She started screaming again, but I hung up. Over the next 3 hours, I got texts and voicemails from all three of them. A barrage of, please help and we're your family and send money now. My favorite was from my mom. I thought you were better than this. We're your family. Family. The same family that told me I didn't belong. I texted back a single line. Sorry, I'm just a roommate, remember? Then turned off my phone. It was blissful. Until 2 days later when I got a new text. Not an essay. Not all caps rage. Just one line from my sister. We're coming home, thanks for nothing. I smiled, took a sip of coffee, shrugged. Not my mess, not anymore. But I knew my break was over when I heard the car doors slam. My mother's voice echoed down the block. My dad was muttering. And my sister. She stormed through the front door like a hurricane in designer sunglasses. Mike followed behind her dragging suitcases. He gave me a nod as he passed small weary. The only person in that house who didn't make my blood pressure spike. Then the storm broke. You're unbelievable, my sister snapped, stabbing a finger at me. We were stranded. We needed you. And you ignored us. I leaned against the wall. I didn't realize roommates covered emergency vacations. My dad glared at me. This isn't a joke. Do you know how humiliating it was to ask strangers for help? Humiliating. I raised an eyebrow. You mean like being told I had no place in my own family? My mom sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Why do you always have to be so difficult? We're your family. Families help each other. I laughed. That's rich. Last week I was a burden. Or did you forget? My sister was pacing now, feral energy radiating off her. You're such a child, she spat. Do you even care about how much stress you've caused? I stared her down. No. And you know why? Because you've never cared about me. Not once. All you've ever done is tear me down, and now you want my help? I'm done. Silence. For once, she had no comeback. And then Mike. Quiet, reliable Mike spoke. She's right. The room snapped toward him. What? My sister gasped. She's right, he said again, calm but firm. You treat her like garbage and then act surprised when she doesn't jump to help. Maybe if you respected her, she'd feel differently. It was like time froze. Even my mom looked stunned. I can't believe you're taking her side, my sister hissed. I'm not taking sides, Mike said. I'm just tired of pretending this is normal. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Of course it didn't last. We've all been through a lot, my dad cut in, voice shaky. Let's just move on. Sure, I said, grabbing my bag. Let's put it all behind us, because I'm done. Done? My mom repeated like the word offended her. I'm moving out, packing tonight. My sister scoffed. You've said that before. This time I mean it. I walked upstairs past the stunned silence, past the cluttered memories, past the version of me who stayed too long. My grandmother didn't even ask for details. Just said, come stay with me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She'd always been the only one who didn't treat me like a defective appliance someone forgot to return. An hour away, her cottage sat on the edge of a quiet town where neighbors still waved and people brought over banana bread just because. When I arrived, she was waiting at the door in her slippers, arms open and a plate of warm cookies in her hand. You're better off without them, she said, patting my cheek. Stay as long as you need. And for the first time in forever, I believed her. I unpacked slowly over the next 2 days, savoring the silence, the birds, the way she brewed tea like it was a ritual. I thought the storm had finally passed, but my sister isn't the type to let things go. On the third morning, my phone rang, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, it rang again. Something in my gut twisted. I answered. Hello, I said, cautious. Is this your name? The voice was clipped, male official. Yes, who's this? This is Detective Ramirez with the county police. I'm investigating a report involving your family. My stomach bottomed out. What kind of report? Your sister filed a complaint against you. She claims you made threats against her safety before she went on vacation. I laughed. Actually laughed. Wait, are you serious? I understand this may come as a surprise, he said calmly, but we are required to investigate every complaint. Can you come to the station tomorrow morning? I didn't answer. I just hung up, heart racing. Threats? That was her play. I told my grandmother everything. She just shook her head like it was Tuesday. That girl has no shame, she muttered. But don't worry, she's all bark. The next morning we went to the station together. Detective Ramirez was younger than I expected. Sharp suit, polite tone, tired eyes like he'd seen too much petty drama for one lifetime. She claimed you threatened to harm her, he said, skimming notes. But when we asked for details, her story kept changing. No timeline, no witnesses, nothing concrete. I rolled my eyes. Of course. To be honest, he said it looks like a personal vendetta. We're closing the case, but I'd keep your distance. People like this don't go quietly. I thanked him and left relief tangled with fury. This wasn't just petty anymore. This was calculated, dangerous. And then came the letter. When I got back, my grandmother handed me an envelope. This came for you. Inside a single sheet of paper. One sentence. I need to talk to you. It's important. Call me. Mike. I stared at the words. My heart did something stupid like hope. I shouldn't have called, but I did. He answered on the first ring. Thank God. I didn't think you'd even read it. Why are you writing me letters like we're in 1994? I asked. What's going on? It's your sister, he said. His voice was flat but strained. She's hiding something big. Color me shocked, I said dryly. Define big. I can't over the phone. Can we meet? I hesitated. I had no interest in being dragged back into her mess. But Mike had always been decent. If he was reaching out, it meant something. Fine, I said, but this better be worth it. We met at a rundown diner just off the highway, the kind of place with sticky menus and waitresses who call everyone hun. Mike was already there, hunched over a cup of coffee. He looked wrecked, pale, wired, like he hadn't slept. I slid into the booth. Talk. He leaned in. The robbery. It wasn't random. I blinked. Excuse me? She planned it, he whispered. The guy who robbed us. She knew him, gave him the money, called it an investment. Said she'd double it back. Except she didn't. I stared at him. And she's been draining my accounts. Slowly. I thought it was fraud at first, but she's been doing it. Covering up debt. I think she's thousands under and spiraling. This wasn't drama. This was crime. Why now, I asked. Why tell me? He looked miserable. Because I can't go to your parents. They'll defend her. Always have. You're the only one who's ever seen through her crap. There was a beat of silence. You want my help, I said. Then you'd better be ready to expose her. No more covering. No more silence. He nodded. I'm ready. But something in his eyes said otherwise. Mike looked like hell when I opened the door. Pale. Sweat on his forehead. His hands trembled as he wiped them down his jeans. I told her I knew, he said. No greeting, no small talk, just that. I stepped aside. And she lost it. Screamed, denied everything. Then admitted it. All of it. Now she's threatening to leave. Take everything with her. She's saying I'm unstable. She's dragging your parents into it again. Of course she is, I muttered. That's her entire playbook. Create chaos, point fingers, cry on cue. She's got them coming to the house, he said. They want to talk. I need someone who sees the truth. I need you. I just stood there. Frozen between the instinct to slam the door and the part of me, damn it, that still felt something for him. For anyone who had the misfortune of orbiting my sister too long. Fine, I said. But this is the last time. I'm not cleaning up after her anymore. We got to the house 20 minutes later. My parents were already on the couch, tense arms crossed, expressions carefully neutral. My sister was pacing like a caged animal. The second she saw me, she froze mid-rant. What is she doing here? She snapped. I invited her, Mike said. She deserves to be here. She's just going to twist everything, my sister hissed. I stepped forward. Let's skip the dramatics. Mike knows. About the robbery, about the money, about the police report you filed against me. My mother blinked. What is she talking about? She's lying. My sister snapped, voice shrill. She's trying to turn you all against me. Mike opened his bag and pulled out papers. Neatly stacked. Quiet bombs. Bank statements. Screenshots of texts. A copy of the police complaint. He laid them out on the coffee table one by one like he was dealing cards in a game none of them knew how to play. My parents stared, the silence heavy. This can't be real, my dad said, eyes flicking across the documents. "Tell me this isn't true," my mom whispered, looking at my sister like a stranger had entered her body. That's when the tears started. But they weren't the kind of tears that make you feel anything except secondhand embarrassment. Loud, ugly sobs that begged for pity but felt faker than a reality show fight. "I was desperate," she wailed. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You didn't mean to steal from your husband," I said, arms crossed. "Didn't mean to file a false police report. Didn't mean to orchestrate a fake robbery." Which part wasn't intentional? She spun toward me, eyes wild. "This is your fault. If you had just left like I told you to, none of this would have happened." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Wow, you really just said that? Blaming me for your crimes? That's peak narcissist." My dad stood up. His face had gone ghost white. "We have to go," he said to my mom. "What about her?" my mom asked, gesturing vaguely at the human meltdown beside her. "She's not our problem anymore," he said. Cold. Final. My sister's jaw dropped. "But you're just going to leave me?" "You did this to yourself," he said. "I can't help you anymore." And then, like something out of a fever dream, my parents walked out. No parting hugs, no tears, just gone. My sister turned to me, her face twisted with fury. "Are you happy now?" I smiled. Ecstatic. "And just so we're clear, if you ever pull something like this again, I won't just walk away. I'll make sure you pay for it." She let out a screech and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frames rattled. Mike stood there breathing like he'd just finished a marathon. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "You'd have figured it out," I said. "You're stronger than you think." We didn't hug, didn't cry, just nodded like two soldiers who'd finally survived the same war. After the implosion, everything unraveled fast. My sister moved out, was kicked out technically. Mike filed for divorce 3 days later. Served her at her new address, which turned out to be a friend's couch. The same friend she once called beneath her during a family brunch. Karma's interior design is brutal. My parents tried to pretend none of it happened, like the entire meltdown was just a rough Tuesday. They called once, left a message that said, "Let's not dwell on the past." I didn't call back. I'd spent my whole life being the family's scapegoat. I wasn't about to go back just because their favorite disappointed them. I stayed at my grandmother's longer than planned. She never pushed, never judged, just made pancakes on Sundays and listened when I needed to rage or cry or both. With her, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a person. Eventually, I got a job in a nearby town, saved up, and signed the lease on a tiny apartment that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. No drama, no eggshells, just me, a plant I couldn't keep alive, and a playlist I didn't have to turn down to avoid triggering someone's bad mood. And her, last I heard, she was still hopping couches, spinning stories, playing the victim. She'd burned every bridge in a 5-mile radius, including our parents, who had finally stopped pretending she could do no wrong. I never felt sorry for her. Not exactly. But there was a kind of sadness in knowing she had every opportunity to be better, and she chose the drama instead. One morning, almost a year to the day after I walked out of that house, I was sitting in my new place sipping coffee and watching the sun rise through my bare windows. The quiet was mine now. I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to fight for it. My phone buzzed. Text from Mike. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for everything. Hope you're doing well." I smiled. Typed back. "Doing great. Hope you are too." And that was it. No dramatic ending, no revenge fantasy. Just peace. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the next disaster. I wasn't holding my breath. I wasn't looking over my shoulder to see if someone was going to tell me I didn't belong. Because I do belong, just not with them. Story 2. I was here for Christmas. A sign had taken the place of my chair, set aside for exceptional visitors. I was seated next to my sister's boyfriend. According to my mother, he has been really helpful. I gave a nod, ate a cookie, left silent. Maya texted 40 minutes later. I'm glad he didn't cause any trouble that evening. By morning, I had frozen the emergency card that they had all used. The group chat was filled with 83 messages followed by frantic calls to me. Avoid becoming self-centered. 3 days before to Christmas, I arrived in Boston. As soon as I left the airport, the cold air hit me like a wall, a chill that creeps into your bones. Since I relocated to Chicago, I had taken this journey annually. Regardless of how complex life became, I didn't miss it. The house was still occupied by my mother, in where we were raised. We've been using the same artificial tree since 2003, and the floorboards are still squeaky. I assumed it would be similar to each other's years. Ham that is overcooked, arguments that are predictable. After a few days, I left quietly with a bag full of laundry I didn't want to do and a headache. This time, though, I realized right away that something wasn't right as I came in. It smelled like burnt cookies and cinnamon candles. A loud Bluetooth speaker was playing Christmas music, but I stopped dead in my tracks as soon as I entered the living room. My seat. I had lost my chair. The family has owned the chair for many years. Horrible. Nothing else in the house matched the fading green floral design. Everyone knew it was my though. I sat on that recliner on Christmas Eve. Always. It existed. Similar to the stupid decorations, or Dad dozing off in the middle. The life is wonderful. It simply was. A laminated placard was now affixed to it. Set aside for exceptional visitors. And there he was. Derek sipped from a bottle of Sam Adams as if he had paid the mortgage, sitting in my chair as if he had been born there. Somehow my sister's boyfriend went from simply hanging out to being asked to family vacations and acting as though he had the right to dictate how the mashed potatoes should be prepared. He continued to go through his phone without even looking up. I surveyed the space. It didn't appear to bother anyone. My mother stated it as if she were bringing me good news as she entered behind me. He has been really helpful. All she said was that. No welcome, no greeting. No. How did your flight go? I didn't answer. I just went to the kitchen, took a sugar cookie from the tray that I knew was from a box, and left straight away. With no specific goal in mind, I got into the car and drove. I ended up eating the dry ice cookie while thinking about how foolish I was to have come while parked outside a Dunkin' on Route 1. My aunt sent me the SMS at that point. I'm glad he didn't cause a stir. For a full minute, I just gazed at it, as if silently recognizing that I had been pushed down the family ladder and that my decision to remain silent was some sort of miracle. They were all clueless. I had made a purchase. I wasn't actually required to be present. But presents for everybody. Not ostentatious, but considerate. A scarf for Mom. She never gets warm. Dad once mentioned he wished he had purchased the autographed Red Sox cap at Fenway. I purchased my sister Emily a good pair of headphones after she complained that hers had quit working. I even wrapped everything myself. Additionally, I had been using the last several months to pay down the family emergency card. They spent it as though it were free money. When someone lost their money, I was always the one to discreetly pick up the tab for Uber trips, groceries, and takeout since no one else could or would. I went into the kitchen that evening after everyone had gone to bed, opened the rubbish drawer, and looked through old pens and invoices. I had to find the card before that worked. They all utilize it like air. I put the plastic cup in the freezer behind the peas and some 2021 mystery meat after filling it halfway with water and inserting the card. I had trouble sleeping. It didn't matter because 83 messages had been sent in the group chat before morning due to turmoil. It began innocently. Emily wants to know who used the card most recently. Mom is unsure if it was taken. Dad is sending a pointless SMS about changing the PIN. Then the tone shifted. Who handled the card? The backup is where, here we have visitors. What should we do at this point? And lastly, Mike. Avoid becoming self-centered. Selfish. Setting the phone aside. I walked downstairs and brewed myself some coffee while I listened to my family's faraway noises as they unraveled a frozen piece of plastic. I remained silent. Not quite yet. I desired for them to sense it, only the flavor. And it was only the start. They were unaware of the extent of my efforts to prevent this house of cards from crumbling, and if they wanted to pretend that I was unimportant, when I stopped acting like I did, they were going to discover what it was like. The remainder of Christmas Eve went according to plan. When a group of selfish individuals are compelled to work without the comforts they are used to. Who was supposed to go acquire groceries was the subject of yelling. My dad said that since he had already taken his medication, he was unable to go. As if we were getting ready for a snowstorm, my mom began taking strange items out of the freezer. Emily was unable to DoorDash anything, so she pouted on the couch. Derek, who was still seated in my chair, was adamantly urging someone to simply solve the problem. I didn't do anything. I saw it all unfold while sipping my coffee at the kitchen table. I didn't feel bad for once. The fixer had always been me. Little crises were handled discreetly by the bill payer before anybody realized they were occurring. They expected me to help more and more. No one ever inquired about my financial situation or how I was doing. They simply accepted it as if it were due. Then my granddad arrived at lunchtime. My father's father. An old-fashioned man. On the 29th, the rent was returned. Emily texted me in a panic, so I know. "Hello, I believe the rent payment is incorrect," using 3 question marks. As if I was meant to feel bad. I didn't answer. She phoned after 2 hours. I rang it out. Then Derek arrived. I remained in Boston and slept at a hotel close to the airport for a few more days. It was quiet, tidy, and most of all, serene. I hadn't disclosed my whereabouts to anyone. I simply walked out. However, Derek managed to find me either through Emily or another person who believed they were assisting. He was there when I opened the door to my hotel room, looking pleased as if he were about to do me a favor. As soon as I opened the door, he began to speak. At first, I tried to be reasonable and said that Emily was anxious and that she believed I had promised to cover January 2nd. I also claimed that it wasn't cool to abruptly end the arrangement. I gave him space to speak. As if he were building to something, he became louder and began to pace in front of the door. Then he said it. "Man, she's your sister. Don't act like a jerk." That was it. It wasn't anything I planned. Didn't consider. I gave him a heavy blow to the chest once. He staggered back into the corridor and attempted to retaliate against me. He wasn't made for fighting, though. He was made for hashtags and brunch. I knocked him down with a second blow to the jaw after he tried a stray punch that missed. Without a word, he crept out of the corridor. Never returned. The phone calls began the next day. First Mom, then Dad, and last Emily. They're all acting as though I've just declared war. Derek did not concern them. They were concerned that without him, no one would be available to help with errands, pick up takeout, or carry boxes. They were rushing. I informed them that I was done playing backup quarterback in the family and that they could solve the problem on their own. Only until something broke did they notice me. The actual spectacle began at that point. My father referred to me as ungrateful, said that I abandoned family values. According to my mother, I wasn't brought up to be violent. Derek had only been attempting to assist, but that was all he ever did according to Emily's text message, which claimed that I was wrecking everything. They would somehow convince themselves that running errands, picking her up, and driving her about equated to being dependable. Then the surprise arrived. Mom's brother, my Uncle Mark, immediately entered the group chat. 2 of my cousins did the same. No one ever spoke during family disputes. They only observed from a distance. Not this time, though. "Perhaps someone should inquire as to why I froze the card," Mark said. Danielle, my cousin, inquired as to who had been making the card payments for the past 12 months. Ryan, my cousin, brought up the issue of rent, claiming that Emily had been boasting about living in that flat for free, as if it were a power move. The tide abruptly changed. My parents made an effort to take charge again, claimed that everything was blown out of proportion due to a misunderstanding, but no one was believing it. They had drawn back the curtain. After that, Emily didn't respond. Neither did Derek. I also didn't feel like I owed anyone anything for the first time in years. They could either drown in their mess or clean it up themselves. I wasn't tossing them a life jacket, however. Unless he thought anything had gone very wrong, he never got involved. Without saying a word, he entered, glanced around the room, and sat down next to me. My mom tried to microwave a rock-solid ham, and we both watched. He gave me a little elbow push and spoke softly. "They are consuming themselves." I remained silent. Cracking his knuckles, he sat back and murmured, "They won't say sorry. None of them. Not until they are in dire need of something." He looked me square in the eyes as he turned his head. "Do you wish to impart some knowledge to him? Don't shout. Avoid conflict. Simply stop assisting. Make him feel it." I laughed because it was exactly what I was already doing, not because it was funny. He got up to go, but he added that they would when they hit the wall. "After that, you determine who is truly valuable. Let it burn until then." Dinner on Christmas was late. They prepared a terrible supper: stale bread, canned beans, and hot dogs. I brought gifts, but no one mentioned them. I waited for someone to do so. Nothing. Derek was dissatisfied with the meal. Mama told him she was sorry. Emily pretended that nothing was wrong while the water surged in, sitting next to him like a cocky Titanic passenger. I so made another silent choice that evening. In the guest room, I opened my laptop and went to my online banking. For the past 4 months, I had been covering Emily's rent. She didn't want to move back in after losing her job in July. So I took over. $1,100 each month. It was temporary, she vowed. I trusted her. Or perhaps I simply didn't want to watch her fail. The automated payment was stopped by me, as simple as that. Not a warning. When the rent bounced in 5 days, she was about to discover just how helpful Derek truly was. I shut off the laptop and fell asleep for the first time in months. They tried to seem as though I was unimportant. I was going to show them how much I'd done. I didn't say anything on New Year's Eve. About 9 o'clock, I switched off my phone. In my apartment, I ordered takeaway and watched movies by myself. The silence had a certain beauty about it. Avoid making phony toasts. Don't fake a grin. Only me. I'm now out of a loop that I'd been trapped in for years without even realizing it. I heard the celebration went off without a hitch back in Boston. Emily had sent photos of a pathetic gathering at our parents' place with a few acquaintances. Wearing one of the sweaters I gave her last year, she seems content enough. Derek is not mentioned. There was no sign of him in her pictures. He didn't appear to have been washed out, not even in the background. I assumed they were allowing the stress to subside by purchasing time. I'm hoping to forget. But they sensed in their hearts that something had changed. Weeks passed in quiet. No calls, no messages, not even from the aunts who were unable to refrain from sticking their noses in. Perhaps they were giving me room, I reasoned. Perhaps attempting to demonstrate that they could operate without me. Then reality set in the middle of February. It began with my mother's vehicle. The check engine light was always on in the 15-year-old vehicle she was driving. It wasn't a small thing this time. She had to have it towed after the transmission failed on a supermarket errand, the $3,800 repair charge. Even while my dad was still employed at the shipping terminal, his hours had been reduced. Everyone in the family conversation had observed that he had stopped talking about overtime, even though he wasn't expressing it out. Emily, who was now back at home, was unemployed. She claimed to be a freelancer, which based on what I could see implied that she had never applied for a job before and had instead spent a lot of time watching YouTube lectures about digital marketing. They would have approached me directly. However, they didn't this time. They attempted to be cunning instead. I received a screenshot via SMS from my Uncle Mark. Because it would go better coming from someone else, my mom had messaged him to ask if he might ask me for assistance. To his credit, Mark turned it off. "If you need help, talk to your son yourself and maybe consider how you treated him before asking," he told her bluntly. The uneasy quiet was almost audible through the television. My cousin Ryan contacted me later that week to let me know, but not to beg for anything. It seems that my parents had begun to discuss holding a family fundraiser. I was not invited. Perhaps any of the cousins could help, they reasoned. Ryan advised them not to expect anyone else to clean up their mistake if they were unable to apologize to me in a mature manner. I became aware of how different things had gotten at that point. The family no longer supported them. People were worn out. Everybody had anecdotes of times they had been helpful. They were taken for granted at times. It seemed like a dam had burst now that someone had finally broken away from me. My parents, however, persevered as long as they could. Then at last I received the SMS. My mother gave it to me. A text wall. I had to scroll for so long. Guilt was the first thing. "Following everything we've done for you." Then the drama started. I worry so much about the outcome that I can't sleep at night. The twist comes next. Even if we're not flawless, the toughest thing of all has been you abandoning us. Not a single expression of regret or recognition of the truth. Simply manipulation. Pretended to be vulnerable. After a few minutes of waiting, I carefully typed my response. "Mom, get a better job." That was it. I made no financial offer. I didn't use a joke or an emoji to lighten it. I just clicked send. The typing bubble emerged and vanished. She never answered. I learned 2 days later that they attempted to obtain a short-term loan but were turned down. In order to get to work, my dad had to borrow a car from a neighbor. Like she was living in a soap drama, Emily resumed sharing lines about loyalty and treachery. They had no one to assist them. Not now. And I had no feelings. No desire to plunge in, no guilt. For sometimes it's necessary to strike the wall. There are times when individuals have to live with the mess they created since no one is left to clean it up after them. They created this kind of existence. Without me, they could find out how to live in it. The group chat was hardly active by the time March arrived. Melissa will no longer provide links to dog videos. No more pictures of my cousin Ryan's Sunday breakfast. Not even the chain prayers my mom always forwarded. Nothing but quiet. Everyone was clueless about how to restart the machine after I threw a wrench into it. To be honest, I didn't miss it either. For so long, they had all been consuming one another. When one piece dropped out, they took it, pretended, and avoided it. The others only sat there and blinked at the void. I had lost my anger. I had just finished, but I could still hear stuff. You don't leave information behind even if you leave your family. Occasionally, I would receive a word or two from my Uncle Mark, generally in the shape of a snarky remark. Your mother attempted to purchase almond milk using a scratch ticket and 2 expired coupons. Your father informed everyone that he was reducing his driving in order to protect the environment. Emily claims that she is now working on a memoir. I initially believed he was only attempting to make me chuckle, but after a while I understood he was also observing them sink. Derek had long since left. It was said that he had relocated to New Hampshire and was dating a Pilates teacher. My sister didn't bring him up again. Rather, she had started sharing mysterious remarks and fuzzy photographs that included the lyrics of depressing independent tunes. Hashtags such as starting over and loyalty are uncommon, as if she were the star of a private drama that no one paid to see. She was back in her childhood bedroom after months of freeloading at her apartment. She detested it. One evening, she shared a picture of her window with the comment, "Feel like a cage." However, the only cage she had ever been in was when she used other people's money and entitlement to build herself up brick by brick. In the meantime, my mother was making every effort to act as though nothing was wrong, sharing pictures of home-cooked meals. There are pictures of her old recipe book on the counter. Making do and appreciating simplicity are discussed in the captions. However, family members were seeing that the automobile was still unfixed. The regular weekend get-togethers were missing my dad. In pictures, their home appeared darker, as if they were attempting to conserve power. Poverty wasn't the issue. It was a sort of silent desperation, but not yet. They had persuaded themselves that they were the center of gravity for years, and now, without their unseen safety net. Everything was floating with me. The tipping point then arrived. I hadn't spoken to my cousin Danielle in about a year, so that was the first step. She abruptly called and claimed she had met my folks in the neighborhood market. A cashier was asked to verify the amount on a prepaid debit card by my mother. Behind her, my dad was carrying a single object, a loaf of bread. Danielle sounded startled rather than critical. They seemed worn out. "Like aged," she said. I hung up after saying, "Thanks for letting me know." Then, for longer than I cared to admit, I sat there with that mental image, and even though it had nothing to do with money, I chose not to go back. It had nothing to do with food, automobiles, rent, or cards. It had to do with their repeated refusal to accept who they had become. And they behaved more like victims of ill luck than like the ones who brought about their own demise when it ultimately came back to haunt them. Then Easter arrived. Emily sent me a text. Just a picture of the table in the dining room. No decorations, 3 plates. A fragment of a fractured gravy boat in the middle. No caption. Only the picture. My mother then gave me another one a minute later. "Here, you're always welcome." That was it. No regret, no introspection, no recognition. They missed me and didn't want me back. While they continued to tread in the same mess, they want the familiar pattern and the solace of someone who cleaned up after them. However, I was no longer that person. After a long moment of staring at the screen, I locked my phone. After Easter, I took a stroll around the lake. I made rough arrangements for supper, had coffee, and ran into a friend. No one made any demands. No one requested favors. No one used an empty chair and cold ham to try to murder me. I also didn't feel like a ghost at my own family table for the first time in years. I had a human feeling, an entire one. The atmosphere in my life had changed by May. For the first time in years, it was lighter. My calendar wasn't filled with guilt-ridden responsibilities masquerading as dinners or last-minute family emergencies. Don't send money-begging SMS. No phone calls phoning to check in to get a favor. It was simply tranquility, and it wasn't until I had it that I realized how much I needed it, but they had continued to attempt. Simply alter your strategy. My father began sending me articles via email with headlines like, "Don't let grudges ruin your life," and "The importance of family bonds." "You're still our son no matter what," was one of his last remarks. As though that phrase had never been said, each time they had a need. As though their lives were just as cozy and complete without me, my mom sent me photos of her garden in the backyard and Emily carrying a plate of burned muffins. There was no genuine message, no apology, just a clue. Take a look at how typical life is here. Do you not wish to return? They were unable to comprehend. They didn't. This has nothing to do with resentment. It has to do with protecting oneself, about one-sided loyalty's sluggish pace. How many times have I been the lone grown-up in the room while the others acted like clingy little children waiting for someone else to clean up after them? Then Emily lost it in June. Late on Tuesday evening, the message arrived. It began quietly, almost courteously. Then it made a turn. She accused me of being self-centered, of punishing others who are only making an effort, and of allowing money to control you. She said that I pushed Derek away when he tried to connect with me. Said that rather than making everyone feel inferior, I ought to have approached her if I had an issue. I felt hollow instead, then outraged. For months' rent, I wrote her a single sentence, Emily. She didn't answer. No one else did either. Everything simply stopped after that. The pictures and card of my mother finished. My dad stopped sending emails. The group chat did not receive any messages. I checked it once or twice out of habit, even though I had muted it months ago. Uncertain if hitting play again was really worth it, the family remained silent, as if they had all decided to take a break. I realized then that this wasn't a phase. It was the conclusion. Not permitted. Don't slam doors, no protracted argument. Just not there. The sort that sounds louder than yelling. I didn't feel victorious. This was not retaliation. It was just the silence that results from starting to create your own thing, instead of waiting for others to change. I took some time off. That summer, went to a lodge in Vermont, flew to Austin for a weekend music festival, and got back in touch with friends who knew me outside of my family responsibilities, and who only asked for my time and honesty. I resumed cooking for myself and running, recollecting how to live without burdening others. The ancient green chair, the warped picture frames, the kitchen drawer filled with old batteries and restaurant menus, and that house in Boston are all things I occasionally think of. I pondered whether the reserved for special guests sign was still hidden nearby, and whether they still kept my seat by the fireplace available. I kind of thought it was to remind them that I was more than simply a visitor, rather than because I missed it. Until I eventually quit, I was the one keeping everything together. Story 3. It was just simpler to invite you than to explain why you couldn't make it. My seat was near to the garbage can, according to my mom. Without completing my dish, I tucked my napkin back, took a drink of wine, and walked away. The transfer of the vacation property was rejected 2 weeks later. My lawyer sent the first of 3 letters after their tax payments was revoked. It was already too late when they opened the second. I will never forget the phrase that began it. It was simpler to invite you than to explain that you wouldn't be attending. No one at the table joined in, but my mother stated it with a little giggle, as if she were sharing an inside joke. As if he hadn't heard anything, my father continued to chop his steak. The wine glass I had just picked up caught my sister's attention as she glanced at me from the other side of the table. She remained silent. Nate? Her spouse gave me a little shrug that conveyed more information than words could. They were celebrating their anniversary, 10 years of dating. Technically, it's not a marriage anniversary, but it's one of those significant dates that nevertheless has significance for those who are still in love. When I learned that they were hosting a formal dinner for it, I felt it was a bit excessive, but I kept it to myself. My unwillingness to cover the cost was something I didn't keep to myself. In every group discussion, that section became the headline. It was a refuge and my mother could access it. 3 weeks before to the celebration, she gave me a call and informed me that she expected me to pay for at least 1/3 of the expenses because of the larger family. I reminded her that the previous year I had covered the cost of their 30th wedding anniversary. Full price, location, food, band, get some drinks, pictures, everything. To make the night materialize, I took out a loan. Not a single thank you followed. It seems that failing to pay this time was impolite. Still, my sister was the main reason I attended. I've always been treated well by her and Nate. My parents enjoy playing strange power games, but Nate, who is a really solid man, never got involved. Nothing could have prepared me for the sitting, but he once told me that he believed my mom treated me like family. Under the sparkling lights of the outdoor space, my parents leased, everyone else was seated in rows of white draped tables with name cards and small bottles of champagne at each table. A tiny folding table positioned between the trash can and the restroom entrance held my name card. The caterers continued to go by me as if I were a part of the wall. For approximately an hour, I managed to keep it together, nodded courteously. When others engaged in small chat, I smiled. When someone spoke a joke that I didn't hear, I laughed. My mother then said that, and that was the end of it. I put down my napkin, took a drink of wine, and left. I said nothing at all. I simply pulled my chair away and walked out. No goodbyes, no embraces. The small bottle of champagne was not even taken by me. Before I could trust myself to drive, I sat in my car for maybe 20 minutes. Slowly, the emptiness in my chest gave way to something more substantial. Not melancholy, not even rage, just a silent choice. Their Lake Cottage's ownership transfer was rejected 2 weeks later. They had pleaded with me to agree to this amid a complex tax scenario a year prior, and the property was still legally in my name. They made a lot of assurances that it was only for the paperwork when I promised them I would assist them out temporarily. No liability, no risk. As it happens, I chose not to sign the documents when they needed to be reversed and returned to them. Their tax advance was revoked that same week. The previous year, they had boosted their application with my signature. In theory, it was lawful. Seldom. However, I was now rescinding my permission for them to utilize my data. The first letter was then sent by my lawyer. It was straightforward and expert. Essentially stated that I would be seeking compensation for the money I had spent on their anniversary celebration the previous year, and that I would no longer be involved in any of their financial affairs. After that, there was an almost ludicrous quiet. The phone calls came first. My dad was acting as though he had no idea what was happening, as if I had accidentally sent a letter. "How could you do this to your own parents?" My mother then tried to explain, putting on the entire sad and disappointed front. I didn't respond. Not a single phone call. They received the second letter 5 days later. This one was less courteous. The allegation was presented in full, including names, dates, and transactions. There was nothing left to bargain over when they opened it. My phone rang incessantly for 3 days following the second letter. Unknown figures, my father's cell, mom's. My Aunt Susan even gave me 2 calls. None of them were answered by me. I was working. I wouldn't have picked up, though, even if I had been sitting on my sofa holding the ringer. The emails then arrived. The tone shifted. No more guilt-tripping or uncertainty. Simply beg. The first one was sent by my mother. "Please, Brian, this is not something we can handle at this time. We're going through a really trying moment. Just stop by and let's chat." A few hours later, my dad came with something shorter. "We'll give the money back. Please don't escalate this further." They had never before offered to reimburse me before then. Naturally, the money wasn't the main factor. It has to do with the reputation. The reputation they spent decades cultivating would have been ruined if it had been revealed that they were being sued by their own son for financial misconduct. 2 kind parents would go to great lengths for their children. That illusion was their life. Without going to court, they consented to pay. My attorney created a repayment plan. It came to $11,000 in all. They were without it. I was certain they didn't. However, they promised to deliver it to me in a month. As it happens, they took it from my sister. It wasn't until she contacted me on a Sunday morning 3 weeks later that I learned that. "So they gave you the money?" she asked. "Yes." "Why, since I have yet to receive anything back from them?" She had been informed that it was for a temporary emergency. They were unable to postpone a house repair. She gave them access to her family's emergency money since she trusted them. Their child was supposed to get the money. A medical operation that was not covered by insurance was required for her and Nate's son. Important, but not urgent. It was gone now. A month went by. No contact, no repayment. My folks ceased phoning. Both of us. No updates or holiday check-ins. They appeared to have gone underground. My sister was too kind to make a direct demand for the money's return. They must be working it out, she hoped. They were borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul's credit cards, I discovered later. Dubious personal loans. One of those applications for short-term microloans with outrageous interest rates. Then they arrived at my flat. Like he was attempting to break in, my dad banged. I thought maybe someone had died, so I opened it. Rather, he stood there looking the same way he used to when he required me to make a repair. He made a mistake. Behind him, despite the overcast cover, my mother was sporting sunglasses. They made no attempt to sugarcoat it. They required assistance. The amount of the debt they took out to repay, my sister had skyrocketed. In just 1 month, the curiosity had driven it up to $14,000. They couldn't afford it. Instead of lending cover, they needed me to cover it. They didn't get credit. They had nowhere else to go. I wanted the door to be slammed. Yes, I did. However, I didn't. Because my parents were still there in spite of everything, even every hurtful remark, guilt trip, and manipulation. And I was sick of the family being affected by this drama like mold. I thus paid $14,000 for it. Lost. My funds. That was exactly the down payment I had been saving for an apartment. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I sat for a long time just staring at the bank's confirmation email. Having parents that are self-centered is awful. Even bad as having to clean up after them all the time. They departed as if they had merely completed a routine task after I transferred the $14,000. Thank you, but no. Don't apologize. Only the silence. We will correct this, from my father, which by then meant nothing at all. I watched them go down the corridor as if they hadn't just destroyed the last remaining semblance of faith. Nothing took place. No texts, no calls, quiet. It was my sister who attempted to make things better. She does it every time. She called to tell me she was planning a family dinner a week after I cleaned up their mess. A little get-together, not one of those imposed holiday events. It could help clear the air, she reasoned. She sounded worn out. Nate had taken on more work. My parents were intended to use the money they provided them to pay for some of their son's dental work. The rescheduling was necessary. I owed her, but I didn't want to go. Not only did she act normally throughout this whole catastrophe, but she also didn't lose her cool when I had to clean up the second disaster following hers. So I came. They were there. Outside, Nate barbecued. Their boy was swinging one of those foam swords crazily as he ran around the garden. My mom's elder sister had come in from out of state along with an aunt and a few other cousins. My parents were late. A classic move. After then, an unexpected event occurred. My mother declared she had something to say as she took the stage in front of everyone. She avoided eye contact. She also avoided looking at my sister. However, she began to speak. She said that they owed us both more than money and that they had committed some grave errors, including abusing their kids. They owed us deference. She then addressed the gathering, saying, "We've hurt the people who have done the most for us, but it's not easy to admit when you've been wrong." My father remained silent, simply nodded. That was about as much as he could do. Clapping was heard. I've never been a part of something so strange. Everyone applauding for these two individuals who had ruined everything and attempted to hide it only a few weeks prior. However, I suppose people enjoy a story of redemption. My mother even broke down in tears, expressed her gratitude for having children like us. I spoke with some relatives, took a sip of Pepsi, and grinned. Everything looked nice. It was a tidy little conclusion. However, I couldn't get rid of it because despite my smile, I knew that I would never see the $14,000 I was still behind on the apartment I had been saving for. Before I departed, my sister gave me a hug and said in a whisper that she would soon attempt to get her money back as well. I remained silent. Both of us were aware of how that would turn out. Relationships within the family did really improve. Conversations resumed. The holidays were less stressful. It appeared to be a pleasant conclusion on the surface. However, every time I return to my rental and pass the drafty window or the broken kitchen tile, I am not permitted to replace them. I am reminded of just how much it took me to achieve it. After that supper, everything became more relaxed, like storm clouds that destroy everything under them and then drift off the shore. My parents adopted this strange new normal. They periodically phoned, inquired about their jobs, and sent hazy photos of sunsets from the villa that they no longer actually owned. It was nearly tranquil for a time, but nothing had altered under the surface. I was aware. My sister was also aware of it. Although we didn't discuss it much, we had an unwritten understanding. Right now. Take caution. Then late one Wednesday evening, she gave me a call. Said that her parents had requested to use her automobile. Nor for a weekend, nor for a few of errands. Until conditions stabilized, they wanted it. They phrased it that way. Maintain stability. They were clutching to the automobile as if it were a life raft as the ocean engulfed them. She spoke in a strained voice. I felt cornered, she claimed. They had arrived at her house, spent 20 minutes playing with their grandson, and then casually dropped the question. There was no petrol money offered. When they returned was not specified. It simply pretended to make perfect sense. Yes, she said. She knew what would happen if she didn't not, because she wanted to. The pouting, the guilt, the sarcastic remarks to family members about how some individuals are simply not giving. With a kid in the back seat and a truck that could get 10 miles per gallon, she was now forced to drive Nate to and from work every day. She was also angry. Not at me. Not exactly, but she became so enraged that she began to absolutely ignore our parents. Didn't return calls or texts, instead waiting for the day they would return the automobile, which they knew wouldn't come around too soon. My dad contacted me 3 days later and informed me that they were short on their property taxes, which were due. Not by much. He spoke nonchalantly as if we had always divided expenses. How much, I asked him. Only $600. Oh, he said, we will promptly return it to you. This time I informed him I couldn't assist. For the first time I said no outright. After a little pause, he just responded, okay, and hung up. My cousin Mark texted me the next morning. Hey dude, is everything all right? According to your mother, you're going through a difficult time. Are you going through a difficult time? She twisted it that way, as though my resistance to be exploited was a sign of a breakdown in my emotions. My aunt called a few days later. The same thing. We've heard that the entire incident still bothers you a lot. Try not to harbor resentment, will we? Not a barrier, but a grudge. A grudge, not consequences. It's amusing how people pretend that you've changed when you stop doing what they want you to do. The presents followed. A week later, I received a delivery containing an expensive wine. I enjoyed it. Not a word. A restaurant gift card a few days later. My mother then sent me a lengthy SMS stating that they were organizing a small vacation for me as a token of appreciation. She even mentioned that they had made a reservation under my name. I didn't answer. She sent an emoji of a sorrowful face. It wasn't giving. Leverage was used. I informed my sister about the presents over the phone. She chuckled, but not in a pleasant way. Without saying anything, she said that they had just given her car back. There was a fresh scrape on the front bumper and the gas tank was empty. It wasn't a big one, but when she saw it, it made her jaw tighten. And you know what? The remaining amount they owed her was never given to her. A month ago, they made a $2,000 repayment. That was it. They'll get creative, my dad responded when she inquired about the remaining details. Ingenious. I had the unshakable impression that this would continue. The pattern of the turmoil, the cleaning, the half apologies, and not just the money. The show. What's the worst? I remained stranded. In 2 months, the rent on my flat would increase. Now, the dripping faucet was a permanent fixture. After submitting 3 maintenance requests, I quit bothering. My banking app hit me in the chest each time I opened it. 14 grand have been spent. I had been coveting a condo for 2 years, and this was the down payment. A location away from the garbage cans in a peaceful building with high walls and a view of the street. I was meant to go out with that money. My chance to own a genuine house. And now I am the silent hero, the decent son. The one who made everything right. Everyone is conversing once more. Holidays aren't really demanding. My parents share family photos online portraying us as a close-knit community that has overcome adversity and recovered. But in reality, I lost all I was aiming for when I purchased that delusion. Life continued on its way. It does just that. Naturally, the rent increased. Like it was terrible news, the landlord issued the notification in a crumpled envelope. He was unwilling to even look at it. After a full minute of staring at the paper, I put it on the counter and turned to go. How might I proceed? Get moving. I considered it, about looking for a less expensive option, perhaps farther out, perhaps with a roommate. However, each choice seemed like a step back. And it's the thing that most upset me. I was meant to be near. Another year, perhaps 2. I also have the option of making a down payment. I had done it correctly. Saved, allocated, skipped trips, skipped out on evenings out. For heaven's sake, I had a spreadsheet, and I was stranded once more. My folks, meanwhile, were sharing family photos on Facebook and were prospering in their own peculiar manner. My mother began posting lengthy remarks on the need of forgiveness and tagging my sister and me in them as though we were TV drama characters. She was narrating live. As he usually does when he achieves what he wants, my dad became silent once more. No texts, no calls, just courteous apathy cloaked in quiet. Not long after, another favor appeared. My aunt gave it to me this time. She contacted to ask for help combining her credit cards after hearing that I was the family's financial expert. It was nearly comical. After giving her a quick hand, I hung up and spent some time sitting in my chair and gazing up at the ceiling. Something began to dawn on me. This would go on forever, unless I brought it to a close. Thus, I took a step that I never would have taken otherwise. I sent an email. It wasn't a big deal. It was simply a straightforward communication to my parents, and my sister was copied. I informed them that I was done with secret expectations, loans, and favors. Not that I was upset, I was worn out. That even though I would be their son going ahead, I wouldn't be their safety net. No more funding, no more repairing the damage. I waited after hitting send. 2 days went by with no response. My mother then phoned. I didn't answer. She texted, "Can we have a conversation?" I also didn't respond to that. A week passed. Our father had been asking my sister what was wrong, she stated over the phone. She advised him to do it on his own. I was stunned by the message that followed. My father sent a brief email. He claimed to appreciate my choice, something he recognized, and that he hoped I would change my perspective someday. I read it twice. It was measured, courteous, and quiet, and it made me more angry than any previous pleading, guilt-tripping, or ranting because he still didn't understand. It had nothing to do with whether he respected my decision. It had to do with the fact that I had never received one at all. My mother announced that she was organizing a family party in a group chat a few days later. A strange mix of anniversaries and birthdays arrived in a few months. 1. She expressed her desire that everyone would come and start again, make a new beginning. As if 3 months prior to this there had been no wildfire. As if no one had spent all of their money to save their small kingdom from collapsing. Because I still harbor the hope that one day the apology won't be accompanied with expectations or that they would apologize without seeking praise. I didn't reply, but I also didn't delete the message. I'm not holding my breath, though. It was a celebration. It did, of course. Once an idea takes hold in my mom's mind, she never lets it go, especially when it involves synchronized clothing and centerpieces. She established a group chat called Family Reset, distributed digital invites, and even hired a photographer who occasionally worked on maternity photos. Everyone was invited. Friends, neighbors, cousins, and even the priest from the church they no longer attend 10 years ago. I went. Don't ask me why. It might be that I didn't want to be the one staying at home. Perhaps because I was requested to by my sister, and she was making every effort to keep everything knitted together. It took place at a hall that was hired out of town. Buffet of balloons. A Spotify playlist belonging to someone. Using a leased speaker to play. Like a cruise ship, my parents waited at the door. Greeters grinned and gave hugs to everyone who entered as if this was the life they had deserved. Nothing about the craziness of the year. Don't bring up the money. Not to me, not to my sister. Then, at the end of the night, an odd incident occurred, just prior to the cake being sliced. My mother picked up a microphone. People let out a moan. "This will be brief," she replied, waving them away while making jokes about giving another speech. "I wanted to talk about gratitude," she continued, surveying the audience. She continued by saying that they had made some grave errors in the previous year, that they had relied too much on their children, taken things for granted, and harmed the ones who were most important. She glanced at me, and according to my sister, she wasn't pleading for pardon. "I'm only trying to express my gratitude." People clapped once more. With a mixture of relief and incredulity, my sister turned to face me. Nate really said the word damn to himself, and I'll be honest. Since that was the first time they had publicly recognized it, something in these softened a bit, not because I felt it made a difference. No BS, no justifications. In front of a large group of people, they frequently try to impress them with a simple sentence. People continued approaching me after the celebration to give me pats on the back and say things like, "It takes a big person to keep a family together." Someone even made the joke that I ought to run for office. I tried to be polite, laughed, and thanked them for coming. However, I couldn't get the $14,000 out of my head. Every month, I watched my ideal apartment, now more costly than before, appear in listings, and I couldn't stop thinking about how I still had 6 months remaining on my lease in a home I detested. About how that money vanished into a problem I didn't cause, so I didn't take a trip this year, purchase the laptop I wanted, or replace the broken air conditioner in my car. So I suppose that things have improved. People are once again conversing. Dinners with the family don't feel like landlines. In fact, my mom, who hasn't cooked for me in years, promised to do so for my birthday next month. I decided to interpret my dad's email with a link to a budgeting program as humorous rather than offensive. However, I always nod, smile, and consider the cost whenever someone remarks how wonderful it is that the family is once again united. As I am the only one with the receipt and I paid for this reset. A little update: 2 months have gone by, and I wish I could say that everything remained better, and that the speech at the family gathering marked a significant turning point in my parents' lives when they realized their own limitations and respected them like unwritten regulations. But life isn't like that, not in our family, however. For a short while, everything remained quiet. My mother texted more frequently than normal. She mostly sent links to items she believed I would find interesting. Home ownership articles, odd kitchen appliances, and even a video of a squirrel snatching a lunch. I believe she was making an effort. Not much changed with my dad. It's still silent, still avoiding anything even slightly sentimental. But he did send me a card on my birthday. Although it was late and clearly written in a hurry, it contained a $50 Home Depot gift card with the words, "To help with future projects," scrawled on it. I put it in a drawer after staring at it for a whole minute. At last, my sister received her remaining funds back. In a way. It arrived in irregular pieces. Here $500, there $300. She informed me that she simply waited and stopped inquiring. While floating their finances, she and Nate continued to pay off the additional credit card debt they had accrued, without me and that emergency fund. In addition to my normal employment, I took up freelance work on the weekends and in the evenings, or anything that paid. I resumed keeping track of my funds. Though the improvement felt phony, I watched the numbers gradually rise out of the hole I'd been forced into. I kept thinking about how much I had already lost, not because it wasn't actual money. My mother then invited me to lunch last week. She stated she wanted to catch up with me alone. I went, even though I nearly didn't. She began by discussing everyday topics such as the state of her garden and the neighbor's dog's constant escape from their yard. Then, as if she had been suppressing it the entire time, she spoke. "We're trying, but I'm aware that we've made mistakes. Do you not notice that I remained silent for a while? Though I wasn't sure what words were appropriate, I wanted to. Then she said something that surprised me with how hard it hit. You have always been the one with strength, the one we knew would be reliable. Brian, that's not a hardship, it's a present." I drained my coffee, also didn't reply to that. It's not a present. I never tried out for the part. They praised me for surviving after unexpectedly handing me over. Now, where are we talking and acting the same? All of us have matured, still skirting the actual issues, as if they were too heavy to move.